All right, John Emberson, welcome back. You're back on the pod again. Who invited you on?
I just happened to stumble upon this, and I figured I'm just gonna start talking until you notice and kick me
I
off.
was like, this guy's a good fit. This guy's a good fit out here.
We'll see how long it
No,
takes
that's-
until you kick me off. That's really what I'm doing here.
I think the listeners are complaining, honestly, at this point. They don't.
I'm surprised you haven't been canceled because of me.
Canceled. Yeah. I think it requires an audience to get canceled.
I mean, it only takes one, dude. It only takes one person to be like, nah, I don't like that. I don't like that. You canceled.
The one listener I have, they're like,
yeah.
Screw this guy.
Screw that guy. Cancel the entire podcast. Also, bro, I got some marks today, bro. Skating.
Oh, wait, skateboard. You got skateboard marks. Wow.
I got skateboard marks.
For the listeners, for those listeners, John's holding up his elbows, his scratched elbows.
Yeah. Because I'm a true skater.
Yeah.
Not really. I skated into a little pebble and it threw me off the board and I went like arms first into the ground. I was like, wow, I forgot you get humbled real quick on a skateboard when you hit a rock.
Dude, the worst, I swear in my life that, because I was literally I was in the same situation a month ago. I swear in my life, I was going about a quarter of a mile an hour, and then I was just standing, basically.
Yeah.
I was pretty much standing on the board, and then I hit a tiny pebble, and I just went knees straight to the ground in my face. I was like, what? And I couldn't skate for the next week. I was like, this is... Meanwhile, all the flip tricks in the world, you're fine, I'm fine, and then all of a sudden, I stand on the board, and I can no longer walk.
Yeah, I literally ran into it I was running and then threw my board down and jumped on it, and as soon as I jumped on it, it was just like freaking catapulted off the board. I was like, shit.
But you're getting better, right? You're getting better.
No, I suck. I'm terrible. I'm probably getting worse, to be honest.
I don't know how.
I don't know how.
Right. One would assume I would get better, but...
You think, but, I feel like I'm getting worse.
Yeah.
I just want to be more confident, dude. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
'Cause I wish I was more confident.
Yeah, dude. You know what'll get you a lot of confidence real quick? When you skate the streets of Budapest and every other foot is a pothole.
I know.
Or some ledge or something. And it's actually brought in so much confidence to my skating, just because I can cruise the streets and pretty fast, and I'm not as you just have to be loose. You just learn to be loose.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind skating on the street as much. Obviously I'm not good, but if I'm literally just skating popping over stuff and everything, I'll have confidence on doing that. It's literally just ramps and coping and rails and stuff like that. I'm trying to hit, but I'm I don't even know where to start, because as soon as I leave my board, I'm going head first into the ground.
I feel the same way, dude. I'm trying to just slappy grind, and I'm I cannot. I don't even know. Every time a board hits a rail or something, or a ledge, I'm my body just immediately flies off. So.
And then you see the guys go next to you and make it look so easy. You're like, God damn it, I want to do that.
I know how to. I can see how they do it. I can do that, right?
Yeah. And then you go on. You're like, I can't even push the goddamn board.
Nah.
Anyways,
you got your part coming out soon, though. So the dear listeners are looking forward to that one.
I did. I mean, you'll see it. I put on the Masters of Skate. I did a little manual on a pad, so that was my trick of the day today. Yeah. It was not that great.
For those listeners, comment down below if you want to see John's video.
No, please, for the love of God, no. My confidence is already at an all-time low. I don't need it to be any worse.
my sweet, sweet listeners, they'll come through. They'll get a part out of you.
No.
All right.
It's fun.
All right, John.
All right. Let's do it.
You ready to get into this, dude?
I think so.
So today we are talking about We'll start the conversation off with commitment, John.
Okay.
Commitment. I think commitment's something that I'm thinking about, you're thinking about, we're all thinking about. Well, some people less than others. Some people have commitment issues. Some people have commitment, like overly committed.
Yep.
I think it just applies. It doesn't just apply to like relationships. It applies to kind of the areas in your life of which you want to excel in, or do better in, or do, or do less in. You know what I mean? Some people are overcommitted, and I think it's interesting. When you think of commitment, what do you think?
Like a dedication to something, like even through you being dedicated to something in your life, even if it means like going through the hardest part of it, is like just like to continue doing that thing, being dedicated to something.
Dedication.
Yeah, dedication to something, whether it's what you initially signed up for, or if it gets rough and bumpy, you still stick with it. That I feel like that's what commitment is like. It's gonna. I think knowing like the right way to like look, or the right mindset to have if you're going to commit to something, is knowing that it's gonna get rough, and like you have to understand that like that's the part that you have to stick with it. So the dedication of getting through those hard parts is what makes you committed to something.
Yeah. What do you think allows you to push through the hard parts?
I think like the small wins, like I said, it really depends on like what you're doing, but like whatever you're committing to, there's usually, I would say for the most part, is there some type of reward. That's the whole reason why you would want to be committing to something, is that there's rewards for you to dedicate a certain part of your life to something. And if you can get through those hard parts, you get rewarded in certain ways, and that can be small wins, and it can also be like tremendous wins too. But it's being able to push through those. You have to see what the future is going to be like if you commit to something, because those are going to be the rewards that are going to make it worth it for the hard times.
Yeah. So there's an inherent reward embedded in the process of committing to something.
Right. I think you're getting something out of it. I would say that you would be getting something out of it that you want to achieve, or you're looking for, you're searching for.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, why else would we be committed to something? Because even if it's not for ourselves, it's for other people, and it's there could be rewards that lie within other people's there's rewards that lie within others' perception of what you do, or people's idea of what you do. Because you can be doing something for somebody else, and then for the benefit of another person, and you don't necessarily feel the reward yourself, but because of your commitment to something, the other person benefits from it, and there's a reward there. Or you could be doing something where you're trying to pursue a goal, or to try to achieve some accomplishment for the benefit of yourself, and I think that is an equal type of reward. Do you think there are things that you should be committed to that you don't necessarily you think that there are things that you can be committed to that aren't necessarily good for you, though?
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking that, actually. I think that's probably the better way to answer that question, is like, what does commitment mean to me? Is like, I think it's always, I would say this for the most people, is like, I think like the premise of commitment is usually based off of like some type of like, this is what I'm looking for in my life. So it's like something that you desire, but you have to put your time into in order to achieve that goal. And it could go that way, but it can not go that way. Like it can go poorly for you, and like sometimes you're like stuck in that. Like if you're committing to something, it could be a negative negative point of your life, and until you like realize that, and you can't do anything with it, with like whatever you're committing to, like it could definitely be a bad thing for you and continue to be a bad thing for you. But I think the premise of like you committing to something, usually there's some type of reward, whether it's a positive thing in your life or a negative thing in your life. It's like for yourself, you're seeking out some type of reward from it, or not necessarily reward from it, but like some type of, you want to gain something from it. I think that's the whole point. Because if we didn't gain anything from the commitment from it, like I feel like that's the hardest part about committing to something is like most of it is like just like taking it day by day, and you're not going to really see any results. But like you said, it's like if it's like a relationship, it's mostly for the other person, but you are gaining like being able to have this like really healthy relationship with someone. Like it is also benefiting you. So I think that you can definitely commit to something. Let's say a relationship, you can commit to something, but like it could be like a very toxic, really bad relationship, but you're like, oh, I'm committing to this person. Like I've already invested this like all my time into this person, and it's like until you realize that it is not a good thing for you, like you're just gonna continue to seek out that commitment that you've already basically expressed to yourself. So yeah, it could definitely be a bad thing for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So it's almost like the perceived commitment. It's almost the perceived reward in the commitment. There's like it doesn't necessarily have to be a reward.
No.
But there's not an inherent reward. There's an inherent perceived reward in a commitment. Because why else would we be committing to something?
I think you're seeking some good out of it. Like you're seeking to some degree of fulfillment through it, whether it's a bad or negative thing. Like it could be like, I'm committing my life to drugs or whatever, and it's like, like obviously it's a little extreme, but like it's probably because you're trying to fulfill something of your life, and you're like, oh well, if I commit enough, like I'm gonna get the thing I'm seeking out, and it could be definitely a negative thing in your life for sure. Commitment doesn't directly connect to positivity, but I feel like whatever your mindset going into it is, you are seeking out something. There's something that you're seeking out that you don't have.
Yeah. Why do you think we're always seeking out something we don't have?
Because we want everything in life. We compare ourselves too much to everything else, and then we're just like, I want that too, I don't know. I think there's like, I also think it's like, kind of relates back to what we've just like recently talked the last time on the podcast, is like, I think like going through, yeah, well, just going through like maturity levels, like certain part of your life, you commit to certain things. Like when I was, I don't know, when I was a teenager, like I committed to playing video games or whatever, like I had like my big commitment when I was like in, I don't know, like middle school, was like every Friday me and my friends would go online and play Call of Duty or whatever. Like, and that was like a commitment. Like even if I wasn't really feeling it, I'm like, oh, well, all the guys are on, I'm gonna go play, So like that was and like for me it was a big deal, because I was like, oh, like gotta show up for my team, gotta show up for the friends, and like that was a commitment for me too. But it's like, obviously now it's like my commitments are a lot different, and I think that just changes over time, because then you have things that seem more important to your life at certain times of your life, and I think that's why we seek them out. Is like, you go through these different stages of life, and like why are we seeking out the things that we don't have? Because maybe that's the next step in your life, is like, you're like, you know what, I do want to have a family, or I do want to have a house, or I do want to have a stable job that I continue to go to. Like I want that now. Like maybe not a year ago I didn't want that, because I wanted to stay at my mom's house, or like go travel, or go stay at a buddy's house. But like now I want this other thing, in order to do that thing I have to commit to some type of plan in order to get to that position.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. It's like it's because when you commit, it's like, yeah, that's like the opposite end of it. It's sacrificing something. You know what I mean? It's when you commit to something, there is an action that needs to be done. There's an action that needs to take place, and in a way that can be oftentimes a sacrifice on many people's parts to commit. And like you said, it could be as small as your time, to go play video games, or big when you're trying to start a family or something. And I think it's within that sort of that sacrifice where you can often find like your own worth in what you're doing. Because when we're just talking, or when you're not really when you actually end up doing something and you actually commit and take action to your commitments, you start questioning whether or not that's the right thing you should be doing. And then through that questioning, you kind of learn to either affirm or deny the validity of what you actually want to do, whether it's the right thing to do or not for you or for another person. And I think oftentimes like it takes the commitment to do that in order to like realize whether or not something was right or wrong for you, but you would never know unless you committed and to try to do that thing.
Right.
And that that's I think it's hard though, because it's hard to take that leap of commitment. It's hard to take that leap of telling yourself that you're going to do something regardless of what it is, but to do it to the extent that you're willing to do it and see how it goes, because that's it's kind of like because you are giving of yourself, like I said, like you're talking about, it's you're giving something, and that something is of value to you, and you better, and anything that we do, we whatever we do, we think that it's going to bring some sort of value, and so I think it's just difficult sometimes to kind of be able to assess whether or not we should commit to certain things in the midst of us trying to decide whether or not we should commit to certain things. We just don't really know that the outcome is, you know what I mean?
Right. I'm curious to hear your point, because for me, as soon as I think of the word commitment, or things that I have to commit to in my life, how would you correlate that with time? Because for me, as soon as I hear the word commitment towards anything in my life, it seems, for me, it scares me, because I have a hard time, because I definitely correlate it too much with time. Is it's long time achievements, but that's not necessarily true. So how would you describe your correlation with commitment with time? Because it has a huge effect on what you're committing to.
Yeah, well, I think it depends. I think it depends on what exactly we're talking about.
Yeah.
So when I hear commitment generally, I don't really necessarily have one way of thinking about it. But when I hear commitment in terms of a relationship, I think till I'm dead. And then when I think of commitment to a book that I'm reading, then it's depending on the book, maybe a month or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe a certain amount of time, but that's not forever, but a significant amount of time if I'm reading a long book or something.
Right.
And so, that is actually, it's great. I'll show you. I just got War and Peace.
Oh, Jesus, dude. Viewers can't tell.
Listeners,
they're freaking, it's a massive book.
I just got my War and Peace delivered.
Holy crap.
To me
that thing is
today,
huge,
and I'm excited
dude.
to start that. And yeah, I know. But I love Russian literature. I've read 4 Dostoevsky books at this point, and then I got Bulgakov, Master and Margarita. So for those listeners who are keeping track with my book club, that I'll get going at some point. That's what I'm reading, or about to start reading.
Sick.
But yeah, so like when I think of reading that book, like War and Peace or something, I mean, I look at it, I'm like, wow, that's gonna commit. I'm gonna take some time to read that. You know what I mean? But it's worth it because it's like something I learned. Because I read another really long book. Was The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, and that was a great book. I mean, it was life changing. It was an amazing book, and it took me every day reading little by little, just in the morning, and I was like, when I bought it, I was like, man, this is gonna take me forever. It's 1,000 pages, and eventually I finished it, and it was like that commitment. It was like I knew it would take a long time. I didn't think I wasn't going to take my life, but I knew it was going to take a significant amount of time for me to get through. And once I did it, I was like, the accomplishment that I felt was incomparable, because I was like, I did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It took a long time for me to do, and I it was an accomplishment, and it's like it goes back to like the feeling of accomplishment. So when you asked, kind of going back to the question you asked, like what's the time frame? I don't know if I necessarily have a certain time frame, but I think I sort of gain the idea. I think I sort of gain when I think about commitment. I in terms of like time, I think of rather instead in terms of like how I'm going to feel when that thing is accomplished.
Yeah, I hear.
And so like when I was in the Marine Corps, like I joined, I was like, okay, this is 5 years of my life. I was like, okay, that's a really long time, but I know, or at least I hoped when I joined, I was like, well, I'm going to take a lot from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm going to take a lot from that experience, and I'm going to be proud of myself for having accomplished something. And, there's little steps along the way, but it's the process. You know what I mean? It's all the process, and it's not necessarily like I think of the time frame. It's the I think of the process that a commitment puts you through, and within that process, it's the journey. That within the process becomes the journey, and the journey becomes the reward, because there's nothing else but the journey. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of like the way I sort of frame it. It's not time. It's just appreciating the journey and the process of it, and certain things have more of a. I don't know if anything really has more of a certain time, because we're always taking things with us, regardless of how small or big the journey is, the process takes. We're always constantly taking that past experience with us in the future. So it never really leaves us in that sense.
So would you say your short-term commitments help out with your long-term commitments then? Or do you think
That's a good question.
Do you think they're related, or do you think that they're two completely separate things?
Short-term commitments.
Do you think that the short-term commitments are like the building blocks of something that's a long-term commitment? Or do you think that there's long-term commitments, period, and then there's short-term commitments, and they don't have to directly correlate with each other?
I think it's a mix of both. I think there are subjectively long and short-term commitments, but oftentimes we take on these short-term commitments or long-term commitments without really realizing how profound these things are, especially short-term commitments, because like when people like try to get back in shape, it's like small steps. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be hitting the gym when you're severely out of weight. You're not going to be hitting the gym 6 times a week. You know what I mean?
Right.
You take it slow. Well, maybe I'll skip out on this bag of chips today, and maybe I'll go for a walk, and then the next day, maybe I'll make it to the gym, but I'll just stretch. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you work your way up until you're benching 500, and that's that is like. And that only started with the short-term commitments, and then the short-term commitments become a long-term commitment when you realize that, like, my health, it's really important. I feel so much better that I work out or do whatever I do. And I'm going to make this like, now this is just a part of my long-term longevity. It's my part of my long-term commitment to myself in trying to, be healthier, feel better.
Right.
And, that's just a single example. You can take that however you want, but
right.
It's like, it's those short-term commitments, is those short-term kind of challenges that, because in a way, commitment is a challenge. Like, commitments are challenging. But if you're able to give the best you possibly can to those challenges, to those challenging pursuits, then you realize that the small things you do add up to the big things, and then those big things become large commitments, even though they started off as small ones. Right. You know what I mean? And it doesn't even have to start off like big. It doesn't even have to start off as something that can be built into a big commitment. It just starts as something you have zero clue that you think would be good for you, and just kind of some idea of how you think you want something to go, and then that vague idea turns into something that snowballs into something big. I mean, like, take this podcast. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to be doing with it.
Right.
I mean, I was like, I love talking to people, and that if I could think of anything to do for the rest of my life, well, I would just be having conversations with people. That would be number one. And so I was like, well, let me see how I like it. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to be doing this for the next year, but I'm going to try to see if I like it.
Right.
And it turns out I really love it, and this is what I want to do. And now everything I do is, trying to further, in some way, the goal of me having conversations with people. And I'm already, I've been doing this for over a year now. I mean, but it started off as like really slow and wasn't every week. It wasn't consistent. I just wanted to get my foot in the door. And then it's built, every week, and I'm at, 40 something episodes. And so, yeah, I mean, it just starts slow, and it's those small commitments that build into bigger ones. That's what a long-winded answer to answer.
No, I get it. I mean, that's why I'm curious, because I've found in my life that like I have a really hard time to commit to long-term commitments versus a short-term commitments. And I'm curious to know, I think it's different for everybody, but like, what is the healthy balance? Because there should definitely be long-term commitments that you're making in your life. But for me, I found that like the short-term commitments I do better with, because then I get the rewards if I just like hold on for a certain amount of time or whatever the case may be. But then also at the same time is like what you're just saying right now is like, you can argue that those short-term commitments are like building blocks for you to make those like long-time achievements that not necessarily when you go into it, you're like, okay, like you said, I'm committing to a podcast for 5 years. You're like, no, I'm just going to like try it out and it's like, see how I like it. And then you just kept doing it every day. You made the short-term commitments of doing it like, every other day or every other week or every other month, like in the beginning. But then you realize once you got to a point, you're like, oh no, like I've made the long-term commitment of doing it a year now. And like, I'm not going to stop anytime soon, So it's like, I think like my question is like, or not my question, but like my curiosity is like, where, like, I think that you could probably argue this thought is like, there's definitely, it's hard to categorize commitments because there's long, definitive, like long-term commitments, like from the beginning, like marriage, right? Like that's like, as soon as you start like considering marriage, like that's a lifetime. Like you should at least have the thought process of like marriage is the lifetime. It's not just I'm going to see how it goes. It's like, no, if you're marrying someone that you're committing to a lifetime of partnership, and then it's like, or if in versus if you're being in a relationship, like, yeah, like you have the thought process of like, oh, I don't like want this to end anytime soon, but like I'll take it day by day and see how it goes, or like we can even go further back than that, like just dating, right? Like you date people and you meet people in real life or whatever, or like you have friends that you kind of like a little bit more or whatever the case may be. And it's like those are the short-term commitments because you're like, oh, I'm committed to seeing this person because I like hanging out with them. But like anything after that, like long-term commitments, like I can't, I can't say that because like who knows where it's gonna go. But like marriage, it's like that is a long-term commitment from the beginning. You're already committing to a lifetime of whatever it is. So it's like, there's, I think like those are what I personally struggle with is like the long-term commitments that start from the start, because like I can, like we can argue of like I think a lot of what you're saying, like the podcast and everything is like I think it's a healthy to have the short-term commitments in order for you to build up these like long-time achievements that you can consider like, a lifetime of commitment, like a long-term commitment, like working out. Like for me, like when I started working out back in high school or like after high school, like I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh, I just want to have a little bit more muscle or whatever. And like, now I am. And like, obviously I've been off and on, but like still like within the last, I don't know, like 8 years or whatever, like I've been the most active in my life. And like, I haven't really like stopped completely. And I don't think I ever will. So it's like, now I look back at it, I'm like, this has been a long-term commitment. But like the day I decided to go out and start working out, like I wasn't like, I'm never going to stop. I was just like, I kind of see how it goes, So it's like, it's stuff like that I'm curious because it's like, what sets it apart? Like what sets the like short-term commitments from the beginning in order for you to actually commit a lifetime of commitment versus like those like big questions like starting a family or, committing to a career or getting married. Like that's like as soon as you accept that, like that is a long-term commitment that you have to decide in a short period of time of like, this is what I want to do. And I know there's like a history before that. Like you don't just like go up to a random girl and is like, I want to have a family with you. Obviously you have a huge past before that, of course, but still it's like I think that's a little more overwhelming for me is like a long-term commitment like that. So like the short-term commitments help me a lot more. I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, I feel that way, Jack, because I mean, when I think about, marriage, it's a scary thing. It's like a big thing, you know what I mean? And for other people, it's not. I mean, and this is just a subjective take on marriage. And it's a big commitment. And when I think about like big commitments like that, I think in a lot of ways you're not necessarily ready to make them, but they happen, and hopefully it works out for the best. And I think your job at that point, in the space before what actually happens or what will actually go down. You have to trust you have to trust that you've done everything you can and everything you could do to make the most informed decision possible to commit yourself to something. And so, it's like so many ways. Like when people say they have kids, I mean, I don't have kids, but they're like, I wasn't ready to be a parent. I wasn't ready to be a father, but I had a kid, and you know what? Like, you're right. I wasn't ready, but no one's ready. Like I wasn't ready to commit to that, but it was the best thing that could have happened to me, and I'm super super glad I'm a father. You know what I mean, or a mother, or whatever. You know what I mean, and so, and that is I think that's a very important part to realize, and it's kind of something that I try to remind myself of is like there are commitments that you're not ready for mentally, and the only way to be ready for them is to go through that process. You know what I mean? Right. And you learn that you had the strength inside of yourself to succeed within those challenges, but you didn't necessarily think you could do it before. And I think like when you go through a breakup, you know what I mean? It's like, am I ready for this? Can I handle this mentally? Can I do this? Is this okay? Am I going to be okay? And in a lot of ways, you ask yourself those questions. You're like, no, I'm not going to be okay. But, like something for whatever reason, like forces the issue And eventually you come out of the other side in retrospect, looking back, thinking like, maybe, that, you're right. Like, it was a good thing. It was the best thing for me, but I wasn't ready for it. You know what I mean? And it's like that's, and, I'm not, and it could go both ways. You know what I mean? I'm not saying everything works out perfect, but, I think the like kind of what you're saying is like, what makes you ready to commit to something large versus something small. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if there is something. I think sometimes there is this kind of unknown factor in it that you have to accept when looking at when big commitments are thrusting themselves upon you. You know what I mean?
Right. The one thing I'm curious about too is like, let's say like a career, for instance, right? Is like you commit to something as far as a career. Like, we meet people, right, and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to be a doctor, right? And you're like, oh wow, like you've done that since high school or whatever. And they get into it and they get through like the really hard parts about it, which is like going to school forever, spending a lot of money, being in debt, like dedicating your whole young adulthood to like being in school, like. And like, for some people, they go through that and they're like, screw this is like, obviously, like, this is not what I anticipated, or like, this is not kind of how I thought it was going to go. And then they get out and then like, they look back and they're like, that was the best thing for me. And then you have other people where they stick through with it, right? And they get through schooling or whatever it is for any type of career. They dedicate their time to it, and they're like, oh, I went through the worst. Like, I went through all the schooling, I went through the debt, I paid off and everything. And then you like talk to those people and they're like, yeah, like, I don't know what I was doing. Like, I like should have just not went to school and like went directly into working with my family's business or something, like I wasted a lot of time to realize that that's not what I wanted to do, And it's like, so like, I basically, my question is like people always, I think people throw around this term a lot, which I have a problem with, which it's like, oh, you'll know. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's really how you, like, what's the intuition where you're in a situation where you're like, okay, this is what I'm committing to. And it's like, okay, like, I know I'm at the rocky point of like what my commitment is. And it's like, I'm going to push through to this, right? I'm going to push through because I'm going to see the end. And you get to the end and you're like, okay, like all that time, like, of course you can always take something out of it. Like, those people that went through the school and whatever, now they have a master's degree or a doctor's degree or like whatever, And it's like, you're never going to lose that. But then they look back and they're like, okay, well, during that time I could have just been like working at an animal shelter because that's my, like, I finally figured out after all the schooling that like my passion is working with animals and I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to animals, But it's like, how do you, at what point do you know when you're going through the like rough part of it where you're like, yeah, I know if I leave this right now, it's going to be a good thing for me. Or if you stick through with it where you're like, no, screw this, I'm going to stick through with it. And you get through with it and it is rewarding. You get to the end and you're like, wow, I'm like really proud that I got through schooling because like now I'm a doctor, I get paid really well, I'm like very happy, like, but I did have to go through the like the shit of it, It's like I feel like there's like a point where that happens and it's like you have to decide whether to push through or back out. And it's like I feel like it could go either way. Like, you can push through and be rewarded, or you push through and you're like, oh well, I should have backed out a little bit earlier than this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've thought about this, and it's that kind of, I'm glad you brought it up because it is in a lot of ways the question that I was going to ask is like, how does somebody realize that what they've committed to is something that they need to stick with? And I think it comes to a point where you either ask yourself, am I committed to this? Am I remaining committed to this because it is something that I know is good for me, and ultimately if I stick with it, it will benefit me, and it is what I want to do? Or am I sticking with it only because I don't want to fail? And you can look at it the other way. It's like, am I going to give up right now because it's hard and it's challenging? Or am I going to give up right now because it's genuinely not what I want to do? It's not, I'm going to let this commitment go because it's not what I actually think is best for me. And when you ask yourself those questions, that is when you learn to become more aware and more reflective of the decisions that you're actually pursuing. Because
that's a great answer.
When you don't do that, you're constantly, I think this is what separates certain people that can push through the challenge, because not because it's not because it's easy, but they can push through it because they know ultimately that it's going to be good for them, and that takes a certain type of personality. And you and I have had conversations about that, outside of this show. But and it's something that is, I think, in a lot of ways, it's learned, but it also, there's an inherent quality about certain people that are willing to push through certain circumstances, even though they are very difficult. And it's like comes with the assurance. You kind of assure yourself that, like, yeah, this is hard, this is difficult, this sucks, but I know ultimately I'm doing this for myself. I know that if I'm able to get through this, and I'm going to push through this because I know I'm able to, and what will be waiting for me on the other side is something that I know is worthwhile for me, or not. And you're like, and you have to, and it's not like, and I think for a lot of times, for like people like you and me, when we commit ourselves to something and it doesn't, and then, sometime through our commitment, it doesn't, it no longer is what we need. We are just hard-headed enough to be like, we give ourselves so much crap because we're like, well, we committed to this. It doesn't matter. Like, we have to remain committed to this because this is just who we are as people. And it takes a serious amount of self-reflection to realize, it's also a bad thing to continue doing something that will harm you in the long run if you don't, or if you just stop it. It doesn't mean you're a failure,
right?
Because I think in a lot of ways, like people like you and I, we think that, oh well, if we stop doing something that we told ourselves that we committed to, like, that means we are failing in some sense. And I've learned, I think in the past year, I think especially, has really taught me that, like, that's not how I should be viewing that. Right. I shouldn't be beating myself up for not staying committed to something that I committed myself to. And that doesn't mean, that it's in certain circumstances that I feel like if I need to stop something, it's hard for me to stop it. But if I really try to do it, and I really look inside myself, there's a point where I realize, hey, Evan, stop doing this. I know you said it was good for you, but at a certain point you realized it's time. It's overstayed its welcome, and you need to stop doing this, and you need to readjust. It doesn't mean you stop doing something, but you just need to readjust based on the circumstances.
Yeah, I think that was a great answer. Honestly, I didn't think about it that way, but I definitely agree with a good point. Is like the self-awareness of that, which is crucial in those moments, right? Like, if you're at a long-term commitment to something, and you get to the point where it's like really rough, and you're like, okay, this is the turning point. You're like, but like the thing is, I think it has to be directly to the type of person you are, because I know in my life the times that I've experienced that, like, I always just push on because I'm just like I'm already committed to this. I'm hard-headed. I'm not going to change my course, Like, I'm just like, I'm going to do it, And it's like, I think it's really crucial for those moments for anybody. You if you're hard-headed, or, you meet people too where they're like super in tune with themselves, and they're like, if I'm not comfortable in any situation, I'm just going to leave. And it's like, okay, great. Like, that's like, I strive for that. But like, I'm sure you can even argue for them too, where it's like, I think you really need to, like, in those moments, in those like peak moments of like something that's really tough through a long-term commitment or even a short-term commitment, like that pivotal moment, it is super important to be like self-aware of like how you feel about things. Like is this gonna benefit me? Like, realistically, how do I feel about it right now? Like, well, of course I'm feeling shitty about it, but like, if once this time passed, is it going to be the reward that I want, or is it going to be the commitment that I want from it? Or am I just doing this because I already set the goal from the beginning and I don't want I want to see it through, you know? It's like, that isn't enough sometimes. Like, I have to tell myself that too, where it's like, that isn't enough just to say that you did it. Like, you know, it's like, and that takes a lot, because that could be a commitment that was like for 5 years of your life, where you're like, you finally come to that 5 years and you're like, wow, all that time of committing to this, like, I'm now realizing that it's not good for me, you know? And it's like, not necessarily that you're going to regret any of that time, and like, that's fine. You're going to learn a lot from it. But it's like, I think it's, for the type of person that I am, it's more scary for me to realize something after so long time than to accept that it's like time to move on, or like time to try something else, right? Like, yeah. I would rather just be like, turn it off and keep going, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true though. I mean, it's interesting because we come at it from this perspective, and I know we're both similar. We both have the same sort of mind that way. But, you know, I think about it from other people's perspective, where they don't necessarily have that. They have it a little bit switched, mm-hmm. or somewhere in between, where it's like, it's hard to stay committed to something even though they know, because they are the people that kind of let things go a little bit too easily instead of holding on to them a little bit too much, like we do. Right. And so, and that has its own benefits too. It does, but. I can only speak from the perspective that we come from, because I think they offer different rewards, and it comes with you know I can only be grateful for, you know, the perspective that we come from, because it allows you to do hard things, and to not really, and you don't really make an excuse for not doing them. But I'll give you a small example. Like, you know, I committed to like a few months ago. I was like, I'm gonna skateboard every day, because I had my skateboard, and I was like, I'm gonna skateboard every single day for a year, and I did it for about 2 months, and then I started getting hurt, and I kept getting hurt, and like, naturally on a skateboard, you're gonna get hurt. You skate every day, yeah. You're gonna get hurt. Yeah. Like, just as we were talking about in the beginning. Yeah. Like, but I mean, was I progressing? Yeah, I was progressing really, really good. I mean, like, from day one, and then, like, you know, 2 months later, I was like much better than I was, you know, a month or 2 months ago, because I skated every day. But I realized, like, I was still hurting myself, and I was like, you know, having sprained ankles and stuff. I was like, I need to take rest. Like, I can't continue, because I can't do this every day, because if I do, I'm just gonna do more harm than good. And it was like, in my head, when I made the commitment, I was like, there's nothing what would stop me. You know, I was like, I was stupid enough to think, like, I'll probably be all right. I'll just work through the injuries. And I realized, like, hey, that's dumb, Evan. You need to slow down. Like, I still skate as much as I can, but you know, I learned to do it a bit differently. You know? And I've had to take days off. I've had to take time off just to let my body heal, and to rest, and to, you know, do all that. And, you know, that was a commitment that I set myself up to, that I eventually had to reflect on and realize, hey, that what you're doing now is no longer good for you. It's harming you. And so you need to, like, reevaluate. But I haven't stopped skating. It's just, I've had to reevaluate how I do it. And so that's a small example for the larger picture of, like, how we live our lives. You know, in the commitments that we commit to every day. You know, what is it? What is the commitment to your relationship? What is the commitment to your family? Your commitment to your work, or your personal lives? You know, there's commitment. We have so many commitments. Oh, yeah. And every single person has a million commitments that they put on themselves, and they have in their lives, whether they put it on themselves or not. And, you know, you have to, it's like constantly reevaluating whether or not those things are good or not from you. And you know, it's like, there's so many that we just don't even think about, like brushing our teeth and taking a shower. You know, it's like doing the dishes. Like, those are just basic things that, like, those are things that I need to do in order to function. And you know, you don't think about those things, because they just run in the background. And in a lot of ways, that's how you want a lot of commitments you have. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think about I mean, I work out as much as I can, 4 or 5 days a week, but it's not like, it's just like a natural thing because I know it makes me feel better and I don't really think about it. And if I need a rest, I'll take some time off.
Yep.
And if I don't, I'll go. But that took a while. That took a long time to learn too, because, like there were times where I was literally working out every day, even after like my motorcycle accident. You remember, I literally got back up on my bike the next day and rode to the gym, and my body was dead. I don't know what I was doing, but I was like, I am committed I have to. I don't know. It's just that type of mind that lies within certain people that I just cannot let go of certain things. And I've had to, because I knew if I continued that way, I would just harm myself. And that's the question we have to ask, like the question you asked, like what makes you stop, or what makes you reevaluate big versus small commitments. And it's just like, what is it doing to you, and do you want it to happen?
Right. Well, I think you brought up another good point too, is like you can also tweak your commitments too. It's like you can have an end goal of what you're committing to, and change your initial plan per se in order to achieve that short-term or long-term commitment. Like you can tweak it, like you said. You get to a point where like you're a pivoting part where you're like, okay, well, I know I don't want to stop this because it is good for me, but like I'm hurting myself, or this is not healthy for me, or I'm not in a good mental place. And it's like, okay, well, maybe if I drop it down to this certain amount of days a week, or I do it every other month, or whatever, for whatever it is, then it's like you're still committing to your initial like thought of like, this is what I'm doing now, but like you're adjusting it to how, like obviously everything changes every single day, and especially, just life events that happen. So it's like, I think that's another important quality of committing to something, is to be able to adapt based off of like how life is going. Because like you said, like in your situation, if you got in a motorcycle accident, you 100% should not be going to the gym directly after. And like in your head, like on paper, it's like, oh yeah, like he's so committed, he went afterwards. And it's like that is like, that shows true commitment. But it's also, it's like, but long term, it's like, it's not really going to matter, because if anything, like you look back at it and you're like, it would have been healthier and safer for me just to take the time off to heal, because I know as soon as I heal, I'm right back into it, like that part never leaves, So it's like, I think it's also incredibly important to adapt to those things too, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you get 5 years down the line of like a career that you're in, and you're like, okay, this, like, I can't do this anymore. You're like, like I do like the parts of this job, because I have been doing it for 5 years. Like it obviously works for me, but like I'm burnt out. And it's like, maybe what that means is being able to adapt to like, I want a different position in this career, or I want to work for another company that does things a little differently, but the same aspect of that commitment, like committing to a certain certain career, So it's like, I think that's another good quality to have through commitments, especially long-term ones, is being able to adapt to like what happens through those like points of your life, that just get brought up in day-to-day scenarios, because like, it's like, committing to the gym every day, it's like, it's 100% achievable, but like, what if you get in a car crash and you break your leg or something like that? Like, okay, like you can keep going to the gym, like you can commit to going every single day, but like we can all agree that like on paper, like that's not good. Like it's like, you shouldn't be like, take the time to rest, heal, and then go back. Like, especially if you're in the mindset of you're like, I'm never going to not stop going to the gym. It's like, it's just a part of my life now. So it's like, yeah, use that time. Don't be so hard on yourself. So like being able to adapt to that is I feel is actually really crucial in order for you to achieve like very long-term commitments.
Definitely. Yeah, no, adaptability. It's funny because I want to ask you this question where I want to know your take on my inner voice, and I'm assuming it's very similar for you.
Probably.
Just based on how I know you.
Yeah. Probably the same.
Where it's like, if I, we're both just yelling at each other in our heads. But the inner voice I have is like, if I am in a state of commitment to something, and I do things the way I do them, and even if I know that I should change it, I should adapt, I should do it in a different way, or for whatever reason, like it just doesn't work out, like I cannot continue doing it the way, and it can be small or big, I have the inner voice that says, like, if you do this once, God knows how your life will crumble, and like everything else goes to hell, and like if you miss this one day at the gym, then you realize that the rest of your life you can no longer hold on to commitments. You are a terrible person, and everything you do will no longer. You're just gonna fall and crumble and probably be homeless somewhere for the rest of your life. Like I like in my head, that is the struggle I'm constantly in.
I definitely think like I do have that to some degree. I think you have it a little bit more than me, to be honest. But having said that, the way I would describe mine is a perfect example is the angel and the devil on your shoulder, right? Like you have like and for me, it's like I have both reason with me of like, okay, like come on, like John, you know that you should be like doing these things differently, and I'm like, yeah, I know, and like I do think about it, and I'm like, it's not gonna hurt me and stuff like that, but you know what the louder voice is the one that's like, fuck it, just keep doing it, man. Just I know it's gonna hurt you, but like you committed to this, just keep doing it. Like you're gonna be fine. Like you've been fine in the past, you're gonna just keep doing it. And then the other side of me is just like, yeah, but like we do have some freedom into this. Like we can choose not to do this. And I'm like, yeah, but like, no, I don't want to stop anymore. Like I don't want to stop anytime soon. You know. That's how I describe it. Is it's not necessarily that it's like detrimental for me. In some aspects, it definitely is, but it's not like detrimental where it's like, if I don't choose to do this, if I quit, then I'm like a failure in life, and like I'm worthless, and I'm gonna be homeless and stuff like that. To some degree, I do have that, like it is, but like I think it's more of like that. I know that side is good for me, and like that it is an option, and that I know that it could work out, but the louder voice in my head, or the whatever is how I function, how I'm, wired, is that the one's just like, no, just keep going. Like, just keep doing, like, even if you're hurting yourself, just keep doing it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I've done it before, so I'm just going to keep doing it. And then you get like slapped in the face and you're like, oh yeah, I don't have to keep doing that. Like, it is better for me to stop, I don't know why it takes so much for me sometimes, and that's the thing too. That's another good point too, which I was going to bring up too, is like, it is crazy that, there's people that are like very in tune with themselves. And if they're ever in a situation like where they're in a long-term commitment to something, and they're like, it's a point and like literally one day they just wake up and they're like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I have a hard time doing something like that. Like it takes a lot for me to like really like think about those things to come to that point. But some people are just like, I know this isn't working for you, I'm gonna leave. And it's like, that's their strong suit. But like, they also have their like demons, like where they can't commit to anything, where it's like, okay, like if you did just commit to school, like you would do really well because you have this like crazy skill set that's like making you really smart in this aspect. And if you just committed to 4 years of school, you're gonna be great. Like you're gonna do all the things that you want to do, but they just can't commit to that. It's like, at least I know that like I have that strong suit, but then I can't. Then I'm not a guy like I have. Sam. Like we have our buddy Sam, and like that guy has been fucking committed to being a father since day one, dude. And it's like oh god, what a humble man. Like I wish I had that quality of myself where I can just be like, I want to start a family, and that's like the most important thing. Like, and like I'm gonna be the best that I can be at that. I was like, I don't have that, dude. I'm like terrified of any of that, And it's like, of course, that's like a downfall of me. Is like not necessarily that it's wrong, but like it's something that I wish I had. So it's like, it's just what makes me the whole reason I'm bringing this up is that it's interesting to me that each person has like a different quality of like long-term and short-term commitments that are very healthy in certain ways, and then not so much on others. Like you can learn. I think what I'm trying to learn is to be healthy on both sides. Try to be healthy about the long-term commitments and the short-term commitments. You know, it's definitely harder for me, and I think in order to be in a healthy state of mind is to not listen to the louder voice in my head all the time that's just like, keep doing it, you got this, like, you're already committed. And it's like, okay, well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right choice. It's not, doesn't mean it's what I should be doing, you know. That's the healthy balance, is being able to listen to the other side of reason, being self-aware, like what we brought up earlier.
Yeah, no, for sure. Being committed, because then I think this is the problem though too, because if for people like you and I, we have to be very careful to what we commit to, because we know that if we commit to something, then we are committed to that thing, and that brings a whole, we know that brings like a whole mindset behind what we do. So if I feel like I'm oftentimes debating in my head, like, are you going to commit to this? Is this really what you, because you know that once you say yes in your head to this thing, then it's game over for you, right? Like that's it, right?
Yeah, of course.
so like it takes a long time, and this is like where, you know, people, this is where I get my commitment issues from.
Yeah.
Is like, I am so hesitant to commit to something, big things, especially big things that I know that if I say yes to them, I will. It will now
incorporate.
It will now take a chunk of my life.
I hear you.
I mean?
I
like,
agree
be
with
very
you.
careful with that, because it's a big responsibility. Because like, I'm not just the person that commits to something. I am the person that's like, I'll commit to it, but then I'll just keep pressing the up button on it. And I'm just
doubling
like,
up, double it up, double it up.
Like I know you said this, but keep going more. You can do more. And it's funny because I talk about it with Dorsey, and you know, it's like, I think I was just I think I was a pretty disciplined person, just like throughout school. You know what I mean? Like just growing up, and it's funny because like I feel like I already had those qualities within me. But once I joined the Marine Corps, and once I, you know, went through 5 years of that, it just beat it into me, and it just hammered it into the depths of my soul, where I can no longer think any other way. But that is just now who I am. You know what I mean? And anytime something like that happens, like, it's just like, keep putting out. You like, it's just like this inherent like voice inside of me that is constantly like, you can do more, I know, but you can do more. Like, I know you're hurting, but you can do more. And I'm just constantly pressing that button of just like, keep going, keep going farther. I'm like, I'm hurting.
Doesn't matter. Shut up.
Shut up.
No, I
get
that.
I feel
man.
that when I'm like running on the treadmill, because I'm running on the treadmill, and I'm like, I'm already at like 11, and I'm like, all right, I'm fucking sprinting right now. I'm just dead. I'm in a dead sprint on the treadmill. Like, keep going, just keep going hard. And I just like pressing it harder, and I can't stop, because I just keep going. And then once I reach the goal, I just keep going, and I can't stop. Like, I just don't, there's not a thing. It just won't let me until I start, like, I feel like I'm passing out. I have to stop, because and I think this is also a large contributor to like why I work out too, because it forces the limits on yourself. I can't lift more than like a certain amount of weight. You know what I mean? It's like, I cannot go past this. My body will not let me. And it's like such a good thing to constantly get those limits. And it's such a good thing to constantly like put myself daily in front of a task, in front of a challenge that I cannot pass. I cannot do it. I physically cannot have, because it sets boundaries for me in that way. When in other ways I can't set those boundaries myself.
I think also it's like it's humbling to have those limits, or like to stumble across what your limits are too, because I have that to some degree too, like on different aspects of my life. I would say like I have that too, where it's like, okay, like I know I'm hurting right now, like I know this is not right for me, or like like we look back at California when I was like working construction, I was miserable, and I like knew it every day. I would drive home from work and just be like incredibly depressed and like be drinking almost every night. Like it was clear signs to me that I was not happy. And so I was just like, I just gotta keep doing it. Like there's like, I don't know, like, and it's like, it's just funny because you look back at those experiences and you're like, why did it take me so damn long? And it's like, I know that now. Like, I know myself. I'm like, because I take a long time to process those things. Like, it's sad to know. And I think this also comes with a lot of times, too, that's, like, just experiences in general of, like, as you get older, you start learning about yourself where you're like, okay, those are my limits. Like, when I reach that limit, like, I'm not pushing myself any further because when I have pushed myself, I get to a really dark place that I don't want to be in, I'm not comfortable with, right? So it's like, I look back at those experiences, I'm like, why did it take me so long? And I'm like, well, because I never really had anything like that. I never, like, had a job that pushed me so far to my limits that I didn't realize how unhappy I was, And it's like now, like, I get to any position now, like, any job, and I get to a point and I'm like, I'm like, this isn't really, like, working. I'm like, I'm just going to leave. Like, I'm not happy here anymore. Like, I'm going to leave because I know that if I continue going down that road, it's going to put me back at the place I was in California, and I never want to be there again, And, like, it doesn't mean that, like, I can ever I'm sure there's still going to be instances in my life, like, specifically for a job where I'm going to get to that point where I'm just like, okay, I'm, like, not happy anymore. But, like, never to that limit. I think that's what I've learned about myself is, like, I'm never going to let it get to that limit because that was too dark of a place to be in my life that I don't want to experience ever again, And that really just takes that takes the experience of going through in order to, like, learn about yourself that, like, that is your limit. You're like, you don't ever want to cross that line anymore, And to be aware of that is, like, such a hard thing to do because, like I said, it's probably just because it's the mindset I have, and that goes directly what you're saying where you're like keep pushing the button. It's like it's for me it's more of a feeling of, like, being numb to my surroundings. It's like I'm not pushing myself. I'm just like I go coastal where I'm just, like, numb to everything around me, and it's like I'm clearly not happy, but I'm just like, well, I've been doing this every day. I'm just gonna keep waking up and doing the same damn thing, and then it's like you finally have a day to, like, rest and, like, really think about it, and you're like, holy crap, I'm pretty sad. I'm pretty disappointed in myself. I'm depressed. I'm not happy. Like I've realized now that I'm drinking every night. Like I don't know what it is with me, dude. I don't know if you have this, but, like, it takes me, and still to this day, like, I have this problem. Is like it takes me an incredibly long time to process things. You can tell me something today, and I guarantee you it will take 2 days for me to be like, oh, I finally realized what you were saying, like, about this thing, I don't know why it takes me, and the funny thing is, it's the most important aspects of my life that takes me the more time to process it. And in one way, I do appreciate it because it's like I think I dive too much into it, like I look too much into it, where it's like, like someone say something to me and I'm like, okay, and then, like, I can't. That's the only thing I'll be thinking about for, like, the next 3 days, But, like, I won't have my mind set on, like, how I feel about it until it's, like, 3 days later, until I, like, finally be like, this is how I actually feel about it, I don't know why it takes me so long. I think that's the downfall of myself, I guess, is just, like, taking too long to process huge, important events in my life, Before it's too late,
No, I mean, I definitely know that about you. Yeah, because you just kind of, I mean, it comes with that comes with the consequences of just constantly processing and never, like, looking around, like, oh shoot, like, maybe I should make a decision.
Yeah, it's like just being self-aware, being, like, really, really, like, I'm learning about myself now. Is like I really do have to take the time of the day to, like, center myself and to really, like, think through things, because I just if I don't do that for myself, I'll never think about them. I'll just continue, like, okay, I got work tomorrow, I got to do laundry, I got to do dishes. Like, I'm just, mechanical with the things, which I do appreciate. Like, I have the discipline with those things, and I think that's, like, brings out a lot of me is like I like those skill sets, but it's like, is this making me happy? It's as simple as just like sitting my ass down and being like, hey, am I happy right now? Not really. Then why are you doing it? I don't know. Just because I've been doing it for the past 2 years, you know, maybe that's why.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to like living an examined life, you know, and that's what we're constantly in the struggle of trying to achieve. And this is for me where meditation comes so indispensable, because like it allows me to center myself in a way that I can think clearly about what I'm doing and how I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about, you know, being aware of my thoughts, being aware of my actions without being identified with what I'm doing. And so that is, you know, it is one of the most important things that I've learned how to do. And I'm constantly, I suck at it all the time. You know what I mean? It's like constantly trying to be aware of what your own awareness. It's like, it's a constant lifelong battle of trying to do that. But, you know, even if as long as, you know, you do it, you're able to, for me, if I'm able to do it consistently, you know, it brings that awareness that I need in order to like reassess the situation I'm in. And I think that is, for in my life, that's what I've seen to help so much, was because I've been able to, you know, when I'm in a bad situation, I'm like constantly reflecting on like, okay, why am I in this situation? What can I do to change it? And that comes with its own consequences too, because then I become so self-aware, and then everything I'm doing is just constant.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it learns with balancing it, you know, but it comes with balance, and that'll be the topic of the next episode, because like balance is like a whole conversation. And you know, that's like that is again another one of the most important things you can learn is balance, and like learning how to balance everything. And that's, you know, that is pivotal to pursuing a life that is in any sort of state of equanimity, because we're constantly being pushed to one side or the other, and without our own ability to stand on one foot, we'll just topple over, you know what I mean? And so finding that was just
I agree. I think
important.
it's funny because life is way too complicated for you just to, let's say, commit to one thing and then it go great for the rest of your life. You know, it's like there's so many things that come into play, things that are unexpected, things that were expected. You know, you're constantly development of your mind and your body and like how you think of things, how you process things. And it's like, you know, we can do, I think inherently, at least from like my experiences, like inherently, like most of the decisions that I make, not all, like I'm dumb and I have flaws, but like inherently, like the decisions I make are like trying to better myself, like trying to do more good in my life. But like in order for those to actually play out and like for those to actually be good for myself and I learn from them, is to be able to balance those things, being able to adapt to those things. So it's like, it's funny because I think it takes, like, for this whole conversation we're having, I think initially you have to have good foundations. And in order to have good foundations, you have to have short-term commitments, long-term commitments that have worked for you. But in order for you to continue those things and for them to be healthy in your life, you got to find the balance. You got to find the adaptations through those things. And that is the key. That is what I'm probably never going to figure out in the entire span of my life, you know? But I would like to get close, you know? That's what I would hope for. I'd like to get close on some aspects of my life.
Totally. I mean, you got to, that's the struggle, man. I mean, you're never going to be perfect. Nobody will be, but that's it's the journey of trying to get a little bit less imperfect. But you know, we all figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And that's
most times it's in
the
the harsh realities of figuring out the wrong way. You're like, wow. You're like, wow.
Trial.
I know I saw this coming, but I still did the stupid outcome.
Hey, I knew this was gonna be stupid, but I did it anyways. Yeah. Okay. Well, John, you know what time it is. You know what the time of the podcast. Okay, so I will say the last episode we had, I watched the Tiny Moving Parts audio tree. Excellent.
Those guys are incredible.
It was so good. Dude, that guy's so good.
It's crazy because you don't realize that he's singing and then doing like tapping on the guitar. He's insane, dude.
I know. Yeah, there was like the first comments was like, I've played guitar for 20 years, and the way this like the fact that this guy can sing and play the guitar as well as he does is like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm glad you watched it. It's an incredible set, really good.
Yeah, no, it is. It was incredible, and it sounds just as good as the album. Like it sounds just as good as their.
I know, right?
They're recorded like
even the second guy that like does the screaming parts. I'm like, wow, it like works really well, and he's actually like really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, the audio engineering too, the audio tree is good. It's like the sound quality is so popular. Really good. They always praise like NPR, like Tiny Desk. They have
definitely
sound engineers, and they all sound good. I would say like it's pretty audio tree is pretty underrated with their sound.
No,
really good sound.
That's definitely why they're so popular. Is like because they're whatever they're doing with their audio team, they're doing it right. It sounds so good.
Yeah. No, Tiny Moving Part. I didn't get to listen to the. I queued it up. I watched it a little bit of it. The La Dispute.
Oh yeah, no, that one's that's a whole shift of gears. You don't have to watch that one because even I like was only parts of it. I watched the Tiny Movie parts all the way through because they're just it's like mesmerizing to watch. The La Dispute's a little hard to get through.
Yeah, and See You in the Ball Pit.
Yeah,
I texted you about that one's good. That one's great. It was such
I don't know how I
song.
found that one. I think that was on my Discovery Weekly, and it just popped up, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah. So what did I recommend you?
You recommended. Well, I know you said that you're into.
Oh no, I recommended you Istoshnik.
Oh wait.
Istoshnik. The Russian.
Oh, that's
Russian
right.
band.
That's right, dude.
That's how you say it.
So
Istoshnik.
yeah, I don't even have one of their songs saved, but I've been listening to their band. Like I play their album when I work out, dude. It's like my workout album now. It's so good because like I don't know. I feel like there's ones that I've listened to that are a different language, but it's like I need the band to be good in order to listen to it, and like their instrumentals are fucking amazing. Like their riffs are really good, dude. Yes, definitely great recommendation. I actually listen to them quite a bit, to be honest. Yeah, how do you pronounce it?
It's pronounced Istoshnik. Okay, I'm probably butchering that still, but that's his.
Yes, I have it saved.
I only found it because there was like some website that talked about them or there was like their Bandcamp or something.
Wait. No, great recommendation. I literally have been listening to them, actually quite a bit when I'm at the gym.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know why I forgot about them.
That's good. No, they're great. They're great. I don't know a word they're saying, but it sounds good.
Yeah, I wonder where.
Okay. Do you have a?
I do, and you probably. Oh, here it is. Finally found it. Yeah, it's hard to find, dude. I'm like trying to find. This is there.
Oh yeah, I know.
Okay. Yes. You've probably heard their popular song. They're really not that. They got this one song blew up. Their popular song, but have you heard of Durry? It's Durry.
Durry. No.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like a small. I think it's literally a dude, and like either his girlfriend or his sister, and they have a song called "Who's Laughing Now." I bet you if you played it, I have a feeling you probably have heard it. It got really popular. Okay. I don't know what from, but anyways, that's their popular song. But I really like from them is what's it called? "Little Bit Lonely." Little Bit Lonely by Durry is really good. That album, if you listen to that album, I think it's Suburban Legend or something like that. I can't remember. Let me see.
Okay.
But yeah, they're a pretty good band. It's definitely like indie rock stuff that we like.
Okay, Durry. How'd you find him?
I don't know. I think it was that song was playing like on a YouTube video or something, and I was like, oh, that sounds sick. Like, and I like looked in the comments, and someone was like, oh, the song's by like Durry, and then I looked him up, and I like realized that they're like not that big, and then I listened to that one album, and I was like, oh, this is like pretty good. I like it.
Okay. Nice. Oh, that's good. I'll listen to him. Nice.
All right, what's your rec?
So, I don't know. Like I was, I'm scrolling through my Spotify, trying to find something that I think you'd like. Okay, there's this one song. So I'm just kind of scrolling through my Spotify, see what I've added recently. In the past, I found this maybe about a month or two ago. It's by Ali Us. I think it's pretty old. It's like hip hop. It's like an old like hip hop band. Let me see. 1990 it's from 1992 single album. It's "Follow Me" Club Mix by Ali Us.
Oh.
And it's just kind of like a happy like it sounds upbeat. I don't know if the lyrics are, to be honest with you, but it's like an upbeat song, and it's like an upbeat hip hop song.
I wonder if I know what this one is.
Follow Me Club Mix. I don't know if you've ever heard
I have
it before.
I feel like I have. I'm not gonna play it until we end it, but
yeah. So I found it by do you ever watch the Amoeba Records "What's in My Bag"?
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. So I forgot who it was. I think it might have been Tennis. Like I was watching Tennis. I don't know if you know the band Tennis. They were on one. I think they mentioned this. They grabbed one of these records, and they mentioned this song, and I was like, I just downloaded it. I added it and wanted to listen to it, and so yeah, it's pretty good. It's like it's just like a upbeat kind of like club. Okay. It's not a club. It's like a upbeat hip hop like kind of. It's fun. It was just kind of like it's a good song to kind of get you in a good.
Yeah,
mood,
I wonder. It sounds familiar. I might have heard it before. I'm not sure. Well, I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
And I'll
yeah.
Did you heard it from that? Was it just playing on the background, and then you looked up what it was?
Yeah. So the Amoeba Records "What's in My Bag" on YouTube. Oh wait, shoot! I don't want to get copyrighted. My phone just started playing music.
Canceled.
I canceled. Yeah, so the Amoeba Records "What's in My Bag," there was a band on there, and they mentioned the song, and I just like honestly, like at this point in my life, if anyone mentions a song, I just look it up and download it. I don't even listen to it anymore. Yeah. I'll eventually listen to it when I like go through my like songs. I'll just like, oh,
if I like it or not, right?
Interesting song. I'll just save it for later to listen to. And that's how I find a lot of new music. So I just downloaded the song and I listened to it, and it was really good. And I just kind of kept it in there. I think you might like it if you don't.
Any recommendation is appreciated. You know that. I think that like 99% of the recommendations you give me, I immediately love. There's a couple that I'm just like, oh, like it's not really my taste, but like I do appreciate listening to like new things, you know.
Well, it's because you're not a intellectual like Dorsey and I. Because if you actually were, you would have listened to our last episode.
Of course I did.
Which was Golden Sounds, or not Golden Sounds. So Dorsey started a show. She's trying to start a show. It's called Gold Sound 500. Gold Sounds with a Z 500, and it's about exploring record labels through 90s albums. And so,
like any genre, just anything from the 90s.
Yeah. So Dorsey picked two albums, last week, and we listened to Mojave 3 and Cocteau Twins. And I don't think you would like either of those, but because so Mojave 3. Remember Slow Dive, the band I told you I recommended? So it's they broke up, and immediately, basically, three of those members started a band called Mojave 3. And it's even more soft and more gentle than Slow Dive. And so it's great music. It's beautiful music, but it's very slow. And I loved it, but I don't know if I'm not recommending it, but If you want to know more about that, and Cocteau Twins, which is another band, we talked about those two albums at length last. Actually, I used it as last episode of Existence. Well, it wasn't Existence podcast, but it was. I just used it as a show swap sort of thing, and that was last week. It was Gold Sounds 500. And if you're wondering about that title, you're gonna have to listen to the.
Okay. All right.
Why is it called such an obscure name?
Well, now I know. You gave me the inside. You gave all the insides for the viewers too.
Yeah.
The listeners.
But those sweet viewers, those sweet listeners. But next time I will have to. Next time I will force myself to get a recommendation before I get on the phone with you, because I know I always forget.
I feel like that's the one thing I need to bring when I ever think about like Tuesday. I'm like, okay, I was like, if I could just like the one job I have is if I could just recommend one song. I was like, I did my job. Which is good though, because it's like then it forces me to like I've been trying to listen to like new artists recently. I'm all over the place, dude. I've been like listening to like a lot of like country, and then I was like listening to like freaking like original hip hop, like when it started, like very underground stuff, and then I switched over to like disco recently. So like I'm literally all over the place right now.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I got a good recommendation. Oh, should I
wait till next time? Wait till next time, because you're. I mean, you can tell me. I'm down.
Oof. Should I leave it for next time for the viewers? For the
then
listeners?
you don't have to. Then you don't have to do the job of this week of figuring it out.
Well, so I wanted to say we should plan next time. So this week we should plan a new song that we found that we're excited to share. So by next week, so. Throughout your week of listening to music, just keep in the back of your mind a new song, like one that you haven't heard of, just one that you found this week that you want to share. And so next time we talk, we could share it.
I think that's what I'm trying to do is like find a new, like even if it's like a band that like people have heard, like it's just a song that is new to me. Like that's what I'm gonna recommend.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah, well, I wanted to. So there was a band.
Yeah,
I'll save it for later.
Because I'm gonna have to find another one, because I have all the music I've been liking are all like, kind of like original songs, not original, but
yeah. I actually think you would actually really like it. It's like a It's good. Cool. It's good. It's like. It's like an experiment. It's like an electronic jazz music. It's really good,
I like that stuff. I didn't realize I liked this stuff, but I like that stuff. Too Many Zooz.
It's cool. All right.
Great band. It's a great band. It's very electronic jazz, but it's awesome. Well, it's not really electronic. Anyways, too many music to recommend. So.
All right. Well, thanks for being on.
Hey,
another
you know
episode
it.
In the books.
You know it.
John Emberson at his finest. Thanks
Absolutely.
for being on. Good sir.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.